Our next agenda is street storage. We have some speakers, Rachel Woolf, who's a founder, and Amanda Weiss. There you go.
Hey everybody, good morning. It's obviously the afternoon here in the UK. We're coming at you from London. Thank you to Damayanti, actually, who I know as Damu, who has put me in touch with you guys today. She's one of our biggest advocates in the US. We run a service that is effectively around storage for people who are sleeping outside, so active rough sleepers, so less about housing. So this is more of a presentation to tell you guys how we work here in London and here how we work in the UK, and whether there's kind of scope or need to talk about it further as a service. So it's very, very early doors, very initial information.
We've got your slides up.
Amazing. So what I like doing when I present to people is telling them when I'm going to finish. So when I get to what next, number 3, that's the end of my talk. So we're just going to talk through who we are, why we're needed, what we do, and kind of what next for us working together potentially in the future over in the US. So street storage, we had a little video. I think it might be quite difficult to play it. So I'm just going to maybe switch to the next one. So I start by effectively saying I don't need to preach to the converted here because you all work in homelessness and housing, but we primarily exist to answer this question. If you had to leave your home and accommodation today and you could only pack one bag, what 3 things would you choose to keep? So we get people to think who are housed or who are comfortably in accommodation to think about those decisions for the hundreds of thousands of people who are sleeping outside in the US currently and who are leaving their home or in vulnerable accommodation. They have to choose what they can carry, very similar to refugees. And so we exist as a human right. We believe that it's a human right for everyone to have somewhere safe to keep their belongings, to give people back their dignity. How can you be treated the same as you or me if you have everything with you at all times? We exist to keep people safe, so to encourage safe sleep sites for people, safe use of services, reduction of crime on the street because we take in people's belongings so they're not walking around as a walking target. Obviously, not having your belongings with you at all times increases the amount of opportunities you have to access services, secure housing, and gain and maintain employment. So we give people opportunities around work and housing by taking their belongings, similar to the lack of options. And then in the UK, some of our local councils, like our local boroughs, will charge people who are homeless to see their storage. So if you're evicted from a council or social housed property here in the UK, they will go and they will put your things in storage for you, but you will be homeless and charged probably $70, I would say, conversion rate given to see your own belongings by the local authority, by the council. So we're a kind of challenge to the commercial storage units that you have over in the States and over here, but we're also a challenge directly to the government system of not providing storage for people who are evicted at very short notice. We give people back their freedom and want them to be treated as a human being. So why is it important for people on the street? Again, might be preaching to the converted here, but obviously you're an easy target. We hear a lot of gang crime where people who are on the street are burnt or urinated on as part of gang initiations and their belongings are stolen as part of gang initiations here in London. Also, there's a lot of homeless on homeless crime, people stealing things from other people for whatever reasons. The loss and theft of damage of key documents and IDs can set housing and employment cases back months, as I'm sure you know. People who lose their passports, people who lose their IDs, people who lose evidence of a job they've done in the past. You can't use services or sleep safely. You're in constant fear of what could happen to everything that you own, considering you've already lost everything. Judgment, that's one of the biggest ones from friends and family. Job losses, obviously, how can you maintain a job either, in a hotel or in an office or whatever it might be, hospitality, if you have to carry everything with you. And physical health. We had a woman come to us recently whose feet were so swollen from carrying her bags that she had to sit on a chair for 2 days straight with us and just to bring down the swelling of her feet. So there's a physical COPD, lung issues, back problems from carrying your things around with you all the time. So we're here currently for probably more than I would suggest Manhattan considers, because London is a lot smaller, the issue is a lot less. We're currently available for anyone to use us who's sleeping outside, but also in any form of homelessness. So sofa surfers, shelters, refuges, temporary accommodations, prison leavers, care leavers, and people leaving domestic abuse. Now, we don't ask for ID, nor do we ask for residency status. So we can accept everyone, and we can accept everyone in an inclusive way, and we do that very deliberately. And I've put a bit of information about where we get our referrals from. So we work with national charities, the local authorities, which are effectively like our councils or our governors, the prison service, foster system, refuges, food banks, shelters, family, friends, and the people themselves. So effectively anyone and everyone can refer into what we do. So in terms of what we actually do, you'll see that it's pretty simple. We have shelving and we have boxes and we have lockers and we have hundreds of them across the city. So we're the only charity that does this in the country. There are a couple of people who do it in the States and in the UK as part of existing organisations, but not solely within its own right. You'll find that a lot of the storages in the charities that you maybe work for or the non-profits that you work for, it's kind of like a basement room with a couple of shelves and no one knows what's in there, and the guys have had their stuff there for hours, days and months and years, and no one knows what's going on. So we're the only official service in the UK doing what we do. There is one in Philadelphia, I believe, called The Bin, but I had a problem with the optics of that because they keep people's belongings in wheelie bins, like garbage, I don't know what you call them in the United States, but we call them wheelie bins here. They're like the bins on wheels. So each person has a bin on wheels in this great big store warehouse, and it's necessary and it's really helpful. But the way that looked to people coming in, for me, I wasn't comfortable with that. So we do things a little bit differently. We don't take any funding from government or national government or local government at all. So all of our funding is grants and trusts, corporates and individuals. So no government support whatsoever for what we do, despite the fact that local authorities the government will still refer into us. So they're happy to use the service, but they're not happy to pay. We currently support about 500, maybe 550 people a year, and we're much smaller than it would be in Manhattan. So we probably look at about 320 people at any one time. With maybe four or five bags each. And we have, these won't mean anything to you, I assume, unless your knowledge of the United Kingdom is really strong. But we have 2 other locations in the UK that we opened up last year. And that's Amanda's main job, is to set up other locations of street storage units across the United Kingdom and further afield. We run a transport service, which effectively means that we have volunteers who go out and drive cars to collect people's belongings from their sleep sites and bring them to our warehouses. And we also do a kind of holistic advocacy, advice and signposting service around wellbeing, housing and employment on top of that. We have a community space, which I assume many of your organisations will as well, where people can charge their phones, get a cup of tea, and go through their storage in private. Because if you think about it, if you've got all your things on the street with you, you have no private place or private space to do that. So we fashion rooms and corners of rooms for people to actually go through their belongings in private. And then on top of that, despite being a team of 6, we also do a load of campaigning, a load of shouting at authorities and more official people. We're a very small charity, but a very loud one. So we do coalitions and stunts and campaigns. We lobby government. We're on a couple of government boards as well at the moment, shouting. We do a bit of street outreach as well. So we go out with, for example, sun cream and water in the summer months. And then often our staff will go out and do scarves and hats and gloves and stuff in the winter months, just checking in on people, making sure that they can live out there. And then we do a load of consultancy and press around what we do. So just a few things. Just quickly, I wanted to go through why people would be referred to us. So I'm not going to read these out. I'll kind of list them. Someone was evicted from the Home Office accommodation. So in the UK, you get given Home Office accommodation if you're lucky. You then have 56, when you get your right to remain here in the UK as a refugee, you get 56 days to find a job, find accommodation, learn the language and leave. And so we get a lot of referrals from people who aren't able to do that. So that was Home Office accommodation. The second one, someone went into hospital and he lost the accommodation that he was in because he was in hospital. So he lost his belongings in that accommodation. The third one, I think, is probably the most kind of easy to understand is someone was homeless and wanted to go to work, but feels he can't start a new job carrying all of his luggage, as well as his work tools and his sleeping bag. So he took in his work tools and his sleeping bag and his luggage so that he could go to work. And then the last one we'll ignore because it's very UK specific. But effectively, people get referred for all different reasons: fleeing domestic abuse, um, going into prison, leaving care because they had their stuff stolen, because they had their stuff urinated on. As I said before, there's loads of reasons why people's belongings aren't safe. And so obviously the sort of direct impact is pretty obvious to you guys, I would assume. Physical well-being, we've talked about, reducing victims of violent crime, removing stigma and judgment, mental well-being. One less thing to worry about each day. I love that. Knowing that you're safe, your belongings are safe, is when you're on the street, you have to worry about where to get showered, where to get laundry, where to get food, how to sleep safely, when is your next appointment. You don't have a diary, you don't have a calendar, you don't have a phone. And it's just one less thing to keep on your mind when you're already, as someone said earlier in the meeting, like quite a chaotic situation. Safer sleep and overall freedom. This is what I emphasize slightly more, is the indirect impact that the storage service can have. Reconnection with family. We have 40% of the people who use us are actively seeking work, and 35 have secured housing. 35% a year tend to secure permanent housing. So they move from street sleeping to temporary accommodation to permanent housing, and we hold their things until they get that permanent housing. And there are tons of people who are currently working and who have re-engaged with education and rehab because we've kept their belongings, so they haven't had to take them all into a rehab room with them or a hospital bed. So it has a kind of secondary impact that's far more wider reaching than just keeping belongings safe. I'll just quickly run through a couple of these stories. So TJ went into prison and he lost his accommodation. He went into prison because he lost his wife. His girlfriend died, and he went off the rails a bit, and he robbed a gambling store, and he went into prison. And he said that he would have attempted suicide had he not come out and found his belongings were safe, because he'd lost everything else and he had no other evidence of a life before he went into prison other than us keeping his belongings. The giant dog is just under 5 foot. It is massive. We've named her Hannah. She is here because one of the people using our service, they won this dog in a fair, like at a fun fair, and they wanted to give it to his child when he next had contact with the social workers. So we are keeping this dog until he gets to see his daughter again, which is really lovely. And the final one, and this is just to show you the breadth of what people's belongings can mean to them and why people would want their things stored. Unfortunately, this is relatively triggering, so I'm sorry if this upsets people, but this is relating to the daughter's ashes of EF. EF said, "I thought nothing could make this easier, and this has." Now, she brought in her daughter's ashes because it was the only thing that she was worried about being on the street, getting wet, getting damaged, getting stolen, or getting broken. The only thing she brought to us was the urn, and the only thing we're storing is the urn. And so I don't need to reiterate why it's important. Sure. I don't think. So we've grown from obviously 475 individuals to 724 in a year. We have referral partners across the UK. We have a new site that you can see here, and we went from 10 referrals a week to 10 referrals a day for this service just in London. So our staff team has grown and all our expenditure has grown, obviously. Wow. But in terms of replication, this is the final slide. We've received requests for what we do and to consult on what we do for over 26 UK locations and about 6 or 7 in the US and abroad. And so Amanda has created a network membership model that talks slightly more about how to set it up in an area that isn't London, and how we would consult and train you guys to run that in a space in an appropriate charity for the community around you. And so ideally, the idea is that we speak to people across the world, tell them about what we do, which is what we've done, and talk further about anyone who might be able to look at spaces for this, look if there's a need, look if there's a desire for someone or a company or a charity or a non-for-profit to set this up, if there's resources, if there's capacity, and if it would help the communities that you serve.
If there's any pressing questions, well, we'll certainly have her contact. We can certainly, uh, if somebody, someone saying they would love to do this, put your name in the chat. And this is excellent. We really appreciate this. I can kind of connect you with a lot of folks. I think the Coalition for the Homeless does something, holds belongings, but they don't do anything this elaborate. I believe they do offer a lot of services. They do connect people. They do work with homelessness, but I can see where it would be beneficial to connect you with them, I'm sure. And then there's lots of churches doing some great work. I think I see that you don't really have an entree into Manhattan, but I bet we could find some people to connect with you. And certainly, if there was funding, it'd be fun for us to do, maybe.
I think for us, it's just such a big beast. Manhattan is such a different world to London. And I want to be very clear about the fact that we do not have location based expertise in New York. I visit New York every year, so I know it very well, but it's a completely different world. I've done some work for the US government, for the UK government in Seattle. So I've worked in homelessness in the States for a bit, but not for very long. So this would be a very, very different thing to look at, but it's just about exploring it initially, I think.